Hello again, and my name is Brian. I have bipolar disorder. This is Tough Talk, and I have a lot to talk about, and especially today. I have been losing some sleep preparing for this video. And I have been stressed out, and my appetite has suffered. I haven't been eating very much. But what I am going to talk about today is perhaps the most important subject that I could talk about. And this will probably be the most important video that I could ever make. Friends and family, those of you that have been there and watched this go down, I don't expect you to watch this video because I know how much pain it causes you to remember. And if you have a stress condition, or a condition in which stress is a factor that you need to avoid, I recommend that you do not watch this video. However, for everyone else, what you're going to see today will educate you on just how wrong a hospitalization can go for someone with mental illness. And that even though treatment for those with mental illness has come a long way and the bar has been raised so much higher, that's not saying much, because the bar used to rest on the floor. So, without further ado, 2 years ago, I was going to my second psychiatrist, and I had to switch to that psychiatrist because my first psychiatrist passed away over Christmas. And I had an appointment in January, and I got a call that I wasn't going to be able to see him in my appointment in 2 days. So I was naturally sad, a little bit grieved, but I was ready to move on. I was ready to try something new. So I picked another name out of the list from my insurance and went to him, and he I think I mentioned a lot of the things that he was messed up, but what's relevant to the story is I had been trying with my first psychiatrist, my previous psychiatrist, to get my blood level at a better value. We were struggling to get it to 0.7, and we got it to 0.8, and I was taking a very high dosage. But he passed away before I could have a follow-up appointment, and I had started to lose some weight, and I was feeling sick on that dosage. So I expressed this to my new psychiatrist, and he ran a blood test, and it came back about 0.87, a little high for my taste. I start to have diarrhea and other symptoms at that dosage range, but he refused to lower my dosage even by a little bit, and he recommended dietary changes. He recommended, in fact, lifestyle changes that are unreasonable based on his wisdom, instead of listening to me and adjusting my dosage accordingly, like my current psychiatrist does. So, feeling very trapped, I decided to lower my dosage on my own, which was a mistake, and I can never recommend it. not without prior authorization from your psychiatrist, so don't do it. And I would have been okay at about 900 milligrams because I was starting to lose weight rapidly. I lost more, something like 25 pounds. So 900 milligrams would have been enough, but I didn't stop there. A family drama, someone that I really love, very close to me, also with mental illness, was suicidal at the time. So in order for me to compensate and to be there and intervene like I needed to, I lowered my dosage even further to one 450 milligram pill, and that I regret. And I will always regret. Because a week later, I went manic. And that's what happens. I was new to this at the time. I only had my diagnosis for about a year. So I made a lot of mistakes that somebody with no education will make. And yet, I still wish I had done better. So let me just make sure that this is recording, because this is difficult to talk about. It would be a shame if it didn't record. It's recording, it's fine. So I went manic again. And what happened at the time was also unexpected. I had a seizure. I couldn't sleep for one night, and I had a seizure when I tried to sleep the next morning. And this is while I'm taking 450 milligrams of lithium. Maybe at that extremely low dosage something happens, I don't know. But epilepsy and bipolar disorder are not too far away from each other. The defect in the cells, in the neurons, that allows for a higher voltage output from the neuron can discharge under the right circumstances when there's a certain concentration of ions in the brain. So I had a seizure. I woke up after only being asleep for 5 minutes with some convulsions and twitches and complete numbness. My left side was completely numb. I tried to stand up and I couldn't move my toes in my left foot or my ankle, I could only put like my knee down, I could only put that into the floor so I could stand. And so I limped over to a mirror, and I saw that I was paralyzed down this side. I had blurry vision in my left eye, and I had this paralysis in my jaw, and if I tried to close my mouth, I bit my lip. So I knew that it was a seizure. I just didn't know why I was having it. It was kind of, all of those symptoms together were very new to me, although I had that initial feeling, like I remembered a couple of memories when I was younger that I may have had some really minor events. But so I went up to my parents and I woke them up. I told them what was happening. But between the point that I was there and the time that I got to the doctor and was seen for it, I had a huge high of euphoria and mania. And I got into an argument with my dad. And that's important because the next day when I couldn't sleep again. It was a terrible night. The next day, I asked for an ambulance because I thought I was having another seizure, and this time it could have been much worse. They took me to the hospital, and in the hospital, the emergency room, I didn't want my dad to be there. because a very small argument. It was only about like I wanted to go and leave the house and exercise or do something, and it was completely inappropriate. I just had a seizure, so like, heck no, that's not happening. But I sent my dad away from that room, and what that led to was a line of questioning from the staff there at that hospital and at the crisis stabilization center that I was sent to right after. A line of questioning that basically led me to say, well, I'm manic and making things up. It led me to say things that almost made it so that my family couldn't see me when I was in the mental institution. So, and that's important because if my family couldn't have seen me, I wouldn't have made it out of there alive. I would like to say at this point that it would be nice if they didn't talk to me while I'm manic. Okay, save those questions and talk to me when you have proof from my lab reports. Okay, save it till my lab reports say I'm sane. Because I don't want to ever be responsible for something that could have ended tragically. But I'll continue. So they sent me to a county hospital for my treatment, and this place is the pits. It's your county, state-run, funded. It's not good. And we have great insurance and we have all of that, but they weren't talking to my dad because of what I said, what they got me to say. Now that crisis stabilization center, they've since been booted. They've been fired because there were so many complaints. But I really should have been somewhere else. Because at this hospital, there was a doctor, the attending psychiatrist, and I'm speaking generally because I don't want to name names. I'm not here to name names. We talked to lawyers, and they said that because of who's representing the hospital, we can't win. So I'm not here to do that. I'm here to talk about the experience and to share so that other people can know. Because I know that there's somebody else. There is somebody else out there who has gone through what I've been through. And this person is too damaged, too hurt, is hurting every day and can't speak up. Okay, so I'm going to talk about it because I can. So this doctor meets with me once and antagonizes me. And I just know that this guy sees me for my disease and sees me for a difficult patient. Okay, this is a burden on him to treat me. He hasn't a single element of compassion in him. So I turned to my social worker and I said, I want another psychiatrist. I do not want to be treated by that man. He scares me. He frightens me. And I need to be treated by somebody else. And this kicked off my treatment by him. Now, of course, the hospital denied my request, even though I signed some paperwork and had advocacy. They denied my request. And after 3 days in that hospital, I was tested. for my lithium blood level, and it was at 0.9 high. The therapeutic range is from 0.6, above 0.5, 0.6 to 1.1. But the effective range, it really tops out at 0.8. You don't need to be above that. So had it stopped there, I would have been okay. But the results came in, well, it's not that the results came in 3 days late, but they only tested me every 3 days. And this is an issue. They only tested me every 3 days, and from my file, this psychiatrist only reviewed my lab reports the day after. So he was getting the reports 4 days past the day that it was taken, past the day that the data is relevant. And so 3 days after that, on my 6th day in there, I was already at 1.5 micrograms per milliliter of blood. And at that level, 1.5, that is lithium toxicity. I have brushed up on my facts, and I'm going to read here. Plasma levels of 1.6 to 2.5 cause severe toxic lithium effects, including impaired consciousness with progression to coma, delirium, ataxia, impaired renal function, and convulsions may be seen in plasma levels even below 2.5. Laboratories have established critically high lithium values that are used for clinician notification. Usually these concentrations are above 2.0. So what that means is above 2.0, a doctor is notified immediately, and there is an alert for how critically high these values are, because at that level there can be an onset of a coma. And those comas, even if the level goes down, even if they have success with using not just IVs to pump fluids through, but also they do dialysis. Even if you do dialysis after the coma starts, the patient can die. So I was approaching that level fast, at above the toxic level of 1.5 on the 6th day of my stay there. And on the 9th day, let me just make sure. On the 9th day, I was at 2.2. I was at 2.2. And still, these lab reports only went to this one man. There was another doctor who had to sign as well, but I doubt that he signed when these lab reports came in, because if that were the case, I would have left in an ambulance then. Instead, I stayed 3 more days, and my last lab report topped out at 2.7. And on that day, my dad comes to visit me. Thankfully, my family could visit, even after all of that drama. They had to fight for the right to, and it was difficult for me realizing what I had said and why that had made a difference. But I had determined on that day that it was do or die. I had to find a way to convince them something was wrong. And of course, while I'm in there, I have no access to any of this knowledge. None of this went by me. But I was suffering to such a degree with blackouts, with the nausea and the vomiting and incontinence, and with how the staff treated me, not believing me, that I was determined that I wasn't going to change the subject for as long as my dad was there. I had to convince him I needed to get out. And fortunately, I had made enough of a scene, and my social worker was there for this visit. He was not always there, but he was there for this visit, and it struck him. I saw him wipe a tear away from his cheek, and he said, I have to go see what I can do. So he went over to the nurse's station, and he pulled out my file, and he let out something audible, inaudible but loud. I mean, he was frightened, like it just struck him, because he saw 2.2 and he knew what it meant, and he called an ambulance, and they came, put me on a gurney, and sent me just up the street to an emergency room, and I was there for 2 days recovering. Now, I cannot for the life of me comprehend the selfishness of this doctor to have made one simple mistake and then decide that he could handle it, that he could fix it without anyone else knowing, and then make another mistake, a bigger one, and then commit, double down on his bet that he could still fix me. Because my levels just kept rising as he kept feeding me medication. I cannot fathom that level of selfishness. And him keeping it hidden from the staff treated me like I had behavioral problems, when in reality, the only problem that I had was impaired concentration, lethargy, tremor, slurred speech, nausea, confusion, disorientation, drowsiness, unsteady gait. I don't know what dysphagia is. Muscle, I think that it's muscle tremors, all kinds of muscle, unintended muscle twitches. I had all of these things, including impaired consciousness with progression. I didn't fall into a coma. I was lucky. I had delirium, ataxia, impaired renal function, and convulsions. Because I was at 2.7. I was at twice the toxic limit and above the life-threatening limit. And they treated me like I was making it all up and behaving oddly. They treated me, and they talked to me, and they lectured me, and they blamed me. It's littered throughout my file, the notes that they made, the nursing staff, that he made himself vomit again. I was just that was my body trying to save itself from dying. Okay, that's all that was. But I was there for 13 days. And I didn't cave. I didn't change my story. I kept to it that I was sick and that I needed help. And I was ignored. And I didn't think I would make it out of there alive. But I am alive. I am. And to that end, there's something, I know this is sloppy, but I remembered something that I meant to say right then. And that's, lithium is fantastic for the brain in the right dosage. In the right dosage, it clogs those pores that are stuck open, and it just clogs them and allows the brain to settle down. But when it comes to the heart, there's a nerve that goes up to the brain and communicates your heartbeat with your brainstem. Now, at this level of toxicity, lithium will go in and clog so many pores that the nerve cannot transfer information from one to the next. It shuts down. And so at this level, my heart could not hear my brain. And so I can only extrapolate that my heart kept beating because I had a will to live, and that it was strong, and that it had a good rhythm. Because if anything had happened, I would have had a heart attack, and they wouldn't have been able to save me. Because you cannot restart, you cannot clear lithium from your body fast enough to reconnect the heart to the brain and get it to beat. So if I had a heart attack, that would have been it. And I was afraid of all of these things. I thought something was terribly wrong. I mean, when I passed out and I hit my head on the floor, I thought each time that was going to be the end. And I woke up after that in disbelief that I was still alive. But I forgot what I was going to say there. But I'm lucky to be alive. They had me on an EKG at the ER for the 2 days that I was there, constant. And it fed to another room where there was somebody attending always, because they were seriously afraid that I would need immediate response and resuscitation in case something happened. Thankfully, nothing bad happened. I detoxed and I recovered, and I've spent the last 2 years trying to recover from the trauma of it mentally. But like I said earlier, I'm sharing this because I know that there's somebody else with mental illness who has been treated, mistreated, or abused by hospital staff in many of the ways that I have. And I know that they're not capable of speaking because it is too painful. And I was scared that I would be in too much pain to speak out about it. But I have trudged on, soldiered through, and I'm here right now at the end of this video to say that The rules need to change for how we're treated. There need to be more safeguards, and it needs to be set up such that it's easier for someone like me who gets to a point that I can't take care of myself and cannot make decisions about my treatment. It needs to be easier to let another member of the family during a hospitalization acquire the rights to take control and make those decisions, because if not, you're left to the state. And there is a letter that I don't think I copied, but it's in my file, and that one is from the state Supreme Court about a hearing that was made regarding my custody. They treat us like criminals. And because I didn't get well after 13 days of treatment, they were going to extend my stay at Crestwood to a month. This was being decided the day that I left in an ambulance. And if it had been, and I hadn't gotten through to my dad and my social worker, I would not be here to make this video. So that's what I want to say. The system needs to be changed carefully so that there aren't any unintended consequences, carefully and slowly, and by the right experts. And I can suggest some changes in future videos, but it needs to happen. This is the best I can do for this. I don't have a great outro. I don't have a really resonant thing to say, but this is the best I can do.